1 week before his wedding, Ryan decided to cut his day short, skipping his last client call and heading home early. He was eager to surprise his fiancée, maybe sneak in a little honeymoon rehearsal. But the surprise was his. As he stepped through the front door, he stopped cold. There stood Caroline, dressed to the nines. Sleek black cocktail dress, pearls at her neck, sheer stockings hugging her legs, high heels clicking softly against the floor. She looked stunning. Wow, he thought. She looks incredible. Caroline jumped slightly at the sound of the door. Her voice cracked as she stammered, "You're early." Ryan, puzzled but still smiling, leaned in, kissed her cheek and said, "Guess I forgot a dinner date." "Huh? Give me 10 minutes. I'll shave and get dressed." He turned toward the stairs, but her words made him stop. "Go where?" Her voice was trembling now. Ryan turned back slowly. Her face had gone pale. "What do you mean you won't be home?" Ryan asked, his voice sharp with disbelief. Caroline clasped her hands tightly. "I'm just completely overwhelmed. All the wedding planning, the stress, I need some space. Just for the weekend." His eyes narrowed. "And where exactly are you going to find this space?" "A hotel. Downtown." "Alone?" he asked pointedly. She hesitated. A long, uneasy silence filled the room. Finally, she muttered, "No, I'll be with a friend." Ryan exhaled, slow and controlled, trying to keep himself calm. "Since you didn't name this friend, can I assume he's a man?" Caroline's expression shifted. Guilt, plain as day, washing over her face. "It's not what you think," she said quickly. "He's just a friend." That word set Ryan off. His voice rose, fists clenching as he gestured wildly, trying to grasp what she was saying. "You're telling me, 1 week before our wedding, you're going to share a hotel room with a man and expect me to believe he's just a friend? I need this weekend," she pleaded, eyes brimming with desperation. He stared at her, fury and disbelief colliding. "Who is this son of a... Who is he? The guy you're so comfortable sharing a bed with?" "It's not like that," she insisted. "We've just been talking." "Talking?" Ryan snapped. "Talking about what?" She looked away. "About us. About our relationship." His jaw clenched. "Oh, so what is he? A licensed therapist now?" Caroline stared at the floor in silence. "Is he a licensed therapist or counselor?" Ryan asked again, his voice colder now, more controlled. Still no answer. He stepped closer, eyes locked on her. "Is he at least a member of the clergy? Someone who counsels engaged couples?" Caroline shook her head faintly. "No, but he's a good listener," she murmured. Ryan exploded. "A good listener?" he shouted, incredulous. "You're spending the weekend before our wedding with some guy? Because he's a good listener?" Caroline's shoulders sank. Her head bowed even lower, as if she were folding in on herself. She looked small, defeated, like she was trying to disappear into the floor. "Look at me when I'm talking to you." Ryan's voice was low but sharp as a blade. He waited until Caroline slowly lifted her head. Her face was streaked with tears, mascara smudged in dark trails down her cheeks. The elegance she had spent hours crafting had unraveled in minutes. "I'll ask you one last time," he said, his voice trembling with rage. "Who is he?" Caroline sniffled, her voice barely audible. "Promise me you won't hurt him?" Ryan didn't hesitate. "I promise I'll find out who he is, and if you go through with this, I will kill him. That's my promise." Her knees buckled beneath her. She crumpled to the floor, curling in on herself like a wounded animal, sobbing uncontrollably, like a scolded puppy desperate to vanish. "Get up," Ryan growled, "and answer me." Silence. In a sudden fit of rage, Ryan tore the mirror off the foyer wall and hurled it across the room. It shattered against the dining room wall with a deafening crash, shards of glass raining across the hardwood floor like ice. Caroline flinched, then scrambled to her feet, shaking. In a trembling whisper, she said, she managed to squeak out, This is why I was going to turn off my phone and just leave you a note. I knew you'd react like this. I I didn't want to do it this way. The look on Ryan's face made her recoil. Rage and betrayal burned in his eyes, and for the first time, Caroline looked genuinely afraid. So if I'd come home at my usual time, he said, voice low and cold, you would have just been gone? Caroline gave no reply, only a small, shameful nod. Ryan clenched his jaw, trying to hold himself together. So, you were really going to sneak away for the weekend? With another man? And leave me a note? Without waiting for a response, he snapped open his briefcase, pulled out a legal pad and a pen, and tossed them onto the dining room table. He yanked out a chair and pointed. This better be one hell of a note. Sit. Start writing. Caroline obeyed silently, hands trembling as she scribbled onto the pad. Ryan stood over her, arms crossed, heart pounding in his ears. After a few minutes, she put the pen down and stared at the paper. He waited. When she didn't continue, he snatched the pad from the table and scanned the page. His eyes froze on the single line she had written. Next week, I start a new chapter of my life, and I have to do this before it's too late. Ryan's face twisted in disbelief. His voice cracked as he spoke. Tell me the truth. Were you going to admit you were running off with another man? Caroline hesitated. If I'd had more time, I would have explained everything. How I felt. He stared at her. That's not an answer. She looked away. I would have tried to phrase it so you'd understand that what I was doing was for us, to make our marriage stronger. Ryan's eyes went wide with fury. Stronger? Are you hearing yourself? He didn't give her time to speak. You think having an affair makes a marriage stronger? That's not how this works. That's how marriages end. That's how people get divorced. Marriages end because of affairs, Ryan said, his voice icy. So do engagements. That struck Caroline like a slap. She hadn't truly believed Ryan would threaten to call off the wedding. Not over this. She scrambled to find a justification, something, anything that would make it sound less terrible. But the words failed her. Finally, she blurted, I didn't tell you because I knew you'd react like this. React badly? Ryan snapped, his voice suddenly booming. You think this is reacting badly? You haven't seen anything yet. He stepped closer, eyes burning. This is your last chance. If you don't tell me his name right now, the wedding's off. Not next week. Not later. Now, forever. How's that for badly? Caroline lunged forward, grabbing his wrists, desperation etched on her face. Ryan, please don't say that. I love you more than anything, she cried. But this is something I have to do. He yanked his arms free. Then give me his name. Silence. He pointed to the door. This is it. Tell me who he is, or get the hell out of my house and don't come back. Ryan, please, she sobbed. Don't do this. I love you. You have a sick way of showing it. He flung the front door open. One last time, his name, or get out. Caroline broke. Her voice cracked as she finally confessed. Scott Jenkins. From work. Ryan's expression twisted in disbelief. Your boss? That son of a, he's older than your father, he roared. Caroline collapsed, wailing like a soul in torment, her cries high and raw like something torn from deep within. Have you slept with him? Ryan demanded. She didn't answer, just stared at the floor. Have you had him already? He asked again, louder this time. Still nothing. Answer me, he shouted. Have you had him already? Caroline buried her face in her hands, trembling. Ryan's voice dropped, heavy with pain. Even your silence says more than words ever could. But I'm still waiting. You owe me at least this much. Have you had him? She nodded. Just once. That small, silent gesture hit Ryan harder than any punch ever could. It felt like all the air had been sucked from his lungs. His heart pounded violently in his chest, so fast it was painful. For a moment, he thought he might be having a heart attack. The room tilted, and he staggered, grabbing the edge of the table to steady himself. Caroline stood motionless, afraid to speak, watching him unravel. Ryan forced himself to breathe, slow and deep, gripping the table like a lifeline. When he finally found his voice, it came out ragged and bitter. As I recall from the Christmas party, he's married. His eyes locked on hers. So tell me, what does his wife think about her husband sleeping with a blonde half her age? Caroline swallowed hard. She's okay with it. Ryan stared at her, stunned. Okay with it? She's going through menopause, Caroline continued, her voice barely above a whisper. She hasn't been able to, be intimate. Not in almost a year. Did she tell you that? He asked sharply.
No.
Mr. Jenkins, Scott, he did. He said she's too embarrassed to talk about it. Ryan's jaw clenched. Then let's call her. Ask her ourselves. Caroline's eyes widened.
No.
Scott said that would only humiliate her more. Give me your phone, Ryan demanded. I'm willing to take that chance. I don't have his home number. Just his cell, she replied, voice cracking. Ryan nodded slowly, bitter realization setting in. So the bastard is sneaking around behind his wife's back. No, Caroline said, shaking her head. He respects her feelings. He doesn't want to make her feel less of a woman. Ryan let out a dark, humorless laugh. Respects her? While he's sleeping with someone else behind her back. That's not respect. That's betrayal dressed up as pity. I can't believe how stupid you are. Actually defending him, Ryan snapped. I've had enough. You have a choice. Walk out of here on your own, or get thrown out on your cheating back. Caroline's eyes lit with fury. How dare you call me that? Ryan didn't flinch. What would you call an engaged woman sleeping with a married man? She had no answer. Her mouth opened, but no words came. She turned away, muttering something under her breath. Too low to hear. I have one more question before you leave, Ryan said, his voice tight with restraint. Why? Why were you going to spend the weekend with another man? Caroline stood there, frozen. Then, finally, she turned and spoke. This is your fault. Ryan blinked. My fault? What the hell are you talking about? When we started getting serious, she said, her voice shaking, you told me you'd been with 3 other women before me, and I told you it didn't bother me. But after talking about it with Scott, it started eating away at me. Ryan stared at her, stunned. I've only ever been with you, she continued, and the more I thought about it, the more I felt unequal, incomplete. Scott said if our marriage was going to have a real chance, we had to enter it as equals. That I needed to do this before we got married. Because you always said you'd never stay married to a woman who cheated. She took a breath, trembling. So technically, we're not married yet. I just needed to even the score. Ryan's voice dropped to a whisper. You destroyed us? To even the score? She didn't answer. Then I wouldn't cheat on you after we're married, Caroline insisted. I just had to do this before. Ryan stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Are you insane? That was before I met you. I've been 100% faithful since our first date. He was pacing now, hands clenched at his sides. So you risked our entire future, everything we've built, because of some twisted logic fed to you by an old man desperate for a girl half his age? No, she said quickly. It's not like that. Yes, we talked about it, and yes, he helped me see how unfair it was that I'd only been with you. But he didn't manipulate me. Ryan shot her a look of disgust. So it never occurred to you that he had a vested interest in getting you to even the score? She shook her head. No, it wasn't about that. He just wanted to help us. He laughed bitterly. Help us? Humor me. What exactly did the good listener say that would help our relationship? Caroline hesitated. He didn't say a lot. He just helped me think it through. He made me realize I'm entitled to have been with more than one man, 3 like you, so we could enter marriage as equals. Ryan's eyes widened in disbelief. Entitled? That's the biggest load of garbage I've ever heard. Ryan, she said gently, I enjoyed being with someone else, but I love you. I'm willing to settle for one man. For you. She gave him a small, foolish smirk, like she had just dropped a winning card on the table. Ryan froze, staring her down. Settle? For one. His voice was low, trembling with fury. If this weren't so pathetic, I'd be laughing. I'm confused, she said helplessly. It all made sense when Scott explained it. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Ryan looked at her, pain etched deep into his face. You're right. It wasn't. He turned away, his voice barely a whisper. It was supposed to be you and me, together, forever. Faithful to each other, Ryan said through clenched teeth. That's what it was supposed to be. So tell me, how exactly did you think I'd react when I found out you were sleeping with your boss? You're twisting everything, Caroline snapped, her voice rising. Am I? He shot back. Then explain this to me. What did you expect would happen when you got home from your little weekend getaway? Did you think I'd be waiting with open arms? That I'd shake the man's hand and thank him for screwing my fiancé? No, she said quickly. I hoped you'd never find out. I didn't want to hurt you. I love you. It was supposed to be my little secret, tucked away forever. Ryan stared at her in disbelief. So your plan was to vanish for the weekend, turn off your phone, lie about where you were going, and I wouldn't figure out you cheated? His expression was filled with contempt, like he was staring at someone utterly clueless. But she kept talking. Even if you did find out, she said carefully, I thought maybe you'd love me enough to understand, to see that it was fair, and that we could still get married and live happily ever after. Fairness, Ryan repeated, laughing bitterly. What part of anything you know about me made you believe I'd still marry you after something like this? Scott said. Scott said. Ryan cut her off, shouting. Of course Scott said. That opportunistic bastard found a naive woman and fed her exactly what she wanted to hear so he could get what he wanted. No, she snapped back. He's a caring man who just wanted to help me. Help us. He wanted our marriage to succeed. Ryan shook his head, disgusted. You still don't get it. So let me ask you this. How many times have you slept with him? Or anyone else? I swear, there was no one else, Caroline said, voice trembling. Then how many times with him? She hesitated, then looked down. Not that many, she whispered. 7, maybe 8 times. Ryan went silent. His eyes went glassy with disbelief, his body rigid, like the weight of her words had finally crushed whatever was left of him. You had another man, 7 or 8 times, while we were engaged, Ryan said, his voice hollow with disbelief. And you think that's not that many? Caroline broke into sobs. I did it for us, to make our marriage work. Ryan shook his head slowly, eyes full of pain. Think back. Remember that conversation when I told you I wasn't a virgin? I never said I'd been with 3 girls. I said I'd had intimacy 3 times. That's very different. Caroline looked up, confused and afraid. Every one of those times was with one woman, Sally McDana, he continued. We were together before I met you. I thought we were serious. We were planning to run away after graduation. But it ended the day her mother walked in on us. He took a shaky breath. The next day, they packed up and left town. I never heard from her again. Caroline's eyes widened. I met you a month later, Ryan said, his voice soft but trembling. And since that day, I haven't kissed another woman, let alone slept with one. Caroline looked like she might be sick. So if you're counting bodies, Ryan said bitterly, that puts you ahead 7 or 8 to 1. I guess that means I should sleep with 6 or 7 more women just to make us equal. No, she stammered. That's not what I meant. Oh, I know, he interrupted, venom in his tone. But let's ask your buddy Scott. I bet he'd say I'm entitled. That would make things fair, right? Caroline's face twisted in panic. How about your best friend Laura? Ryan asked coldly. You always said you didn't trust her around me. Or maybe your sister. She's single, right? No, Caroline cried. Please, Ryan. No, not like this. He stepped forward, his voice low and deadly calm. Then give me one good reason why not. I'll end it, Caroline said desperately. I won't go away with him this weekend. I made a mistake, but I did it for us. Ryan shook his head slowly, eyes cold. No, you did it for you. Don't hide behind us. Please, Ryan, she pleaded. Give me another chance. I swear. You're 8 times too late for that, he snapped. I could never trust you again. Tears streamed down her face. Please. I swear I'll never. He raised his hand. She fell silent. What you did wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. Calculated. Betrayal. His voice cracked with restrained emotion. It was pure evil. He took a breath, then delivered the final blow. There is no us anymore. You destroyed that, and there won't be a wedding. Not now. Not ever. No, she whispered, stepping forward, broken. Please don't say that. I love you. I swear I'll never cheat again. Ryan's expression didn't soften. You know what hurts more than your betrayal? He said quietly. The fact that you never came to me when you were having doubts. Me, the man you claimed to love. He took another step back, as if distancing himself from the memory of her. I don't know what I would have said or done. But I promise you this, I wouldn't have told you to sleep with a married man to even the score. Only someone who wrecks marriages could rationalize that. Caroline opened her mouth to speak, but the room had gone silent. Utterly, painfully silent. Caroline could feel her world collapsing. It was as if icy fingers were clawing at her chest, ripping out every dream she'd ever cherished. Her breath came in shallow gasps, while stung the back of her throat, and her knees threatened to give way beneath her. Ryan's voice cut through the haze, sharp and merciless. What do you think your mother's going to call you when I tell her why we're not getting married? Because while you were tasting cakes, you were also sampling men, old men. No! Caroline screamed, wild with panic. I'll make sure everyone knows what you did. Ryan's eyes burned with rage as he seized her left hand and yanked the engagement ring from her finger with such force it nearly dislocated the joint. That's mine! She shrieked, flailing at him. You gave it to me. He clenched the ring tightly in his fist. I gave it to the woman I planned to spend my life with. That woman doesn't exist anymore. You betrayed her, and you betrayed everything this ring stood for. He took a trembling breath and pointed toward the door. It's over. I can't marry you. Please leave before I do something I'll regret. His words hit her like a wrecking ball. Caroline opened her mouth, trying to respond, but nothing came. Her throat was tight, her breath ragged. The sound she made was less human than animal, like someone choking on their own sorrow. Her body trembled uncontrollably, her eyes wide with disbelief and grief. The silence in the room was deafening. Ryan stood there, his own tears now streaking down his face. I haven't felt pain like this since the day my father died, he whispered. Caroline searched her memory, grasping for anything she could say to salvage the future they'd once imagined together. But the words wouldn't come. Not a single one. That was when the truth finally hit her. She had been played. Scott hadn't cared about equality. He cared about her, possessing her, breaking her. Suddenly, a knock at the door shattered the silence. Caroline jolted, startled. Oh my God, that's Scott, she whispered. She turned to Ryan, her voice pleading, I'll tell him to leave. Please, just don't cause a scene. Ryan walked calmly to the door and picked up the baseball bat leaning beside it. I'm not going to cause a scene, he said flatly. I'm going to kill him, right here, in this foyer, while you watch. Caroline leapt between Ryan and the door, panic overtaking her grief. Please, don't do this. He's not worth ruining your life over. Ryan's eyes were hollow. I don't care anymore, he said, stepping around her with cold determination. I've got nothing left. But if I end him, maybe that'll balance out the hell he put me through. Desperate, Caroline fumbled for her phone and tried calling Scott to warn him, but it went straight to voicemail. No signal, or perhaps he'd turned it off. Her heart pounded as Ryan raised the bat in one hand and opened the door with the other, ready to bring it down on the man he believed had destroyed his life. But it wasn't Scott standing there. 2 uniformed police officers greeted him instead. Ryan froze. The bat slipped from his hand and clattered loudly against the tile, the sound sharp and final. The officers barely acknowledged him. Excuse me, ma'am, one of them said, stepping forward. Are you Caroline Bradley? She blinked in confusion. Yes, what's going on? Is something wrong, officer? The older officer entered, closing the door gently behind him. Do you know a Mrs. Loretta Jenkins? Loretta. Caroline frowned. Yes, I work for her husband, Scott. Why? Did something happen to her? The two officers exchanged a glance, tight-lipped, knowing, and then one of them said quietly, No, ma'am, but about an hour ago, Loretta Jenkins shot and killed her husband in their living room. Caroline's entire body went limp. Her eyes rolled back, and she crumpled to the floor like a rag doll. Ryan stood still for a moment, stunned. Then, with grim calm, he turned and walked into the kitchen. Moments later, he returned carrying a large pot brimming with cold water. Without a word, he threw the contents across her face. Caroline jolted upright, sputtering and gasping. He crouched beside her, voice low and bitter. Looks like karma got to him first. Caroline's once perfectly styled hair now clung to her face like wet straw. She looked like a ghost of the woman she had been just minutes ago. Took her a moment to breathe, to blink, to speak. In a trembling, broken whisper, she said, Oh my God, Scotty's dead. One of the officers nodded grimly. Yes, ma'am. His wife shot him 6 times in the chest with a .38 revolver. Then she reloaded and shot him 6 more times in the face. Detectives said it was the coldest execution they've ever seen. Nearly blew his head clean off. The room fell into stunned silence. And then, from the corner, Ryan laughed. It started small, sharp, bitter, but quickly turned into a low, unsettling chuckle that made the officers glance at each other uneasily. I guess Loretta didn't give her husband permission to spend the weekend with you after all, Ryan said dryly. One of the officers cleared his throat. Ma'am, we need you to come down to the station. Mrs. Jenkins told a neighbor she planned to kill you for destroying her marriage. We've got patrol cars canvassing the area, but until we locate her, you'll be safer downtown. Caroline didn't respond. Her face was pale, almost waxy, her eyes vacant and unfocused, lost somewhere far from the living room she once thought would be her future home. A walking shell. As the officers helped her to her feet, Ryan's voice rang out one last time. Don't come back, you lying, cheating woman. Her scream ripped through the room, a raw, guttural wail of grief and madness. As the officers half-carried her outside, Ryan stood alone, watching the flashing blue lights disappear down the street. The silence afterward was louder than any words spoken that night. He walked to the liquor cabinet, poured 3 stiff shots of Jack Daniels, and tossed them back one after another. His hands trembled slightly as the fire ran down his throat, dulling the edges of a reality that had gone far off the rails. Somewhere in the distance, a siren howled. The 4th shot of Jack finally loosened Ryan's nerves, and something else too. A dark clarity settled over him. He walked over to Caroline's laptop, flipped it open, and began to type. He wasn't shaking anymore. He composed a single email and sent it to everyone in Caroline's contact list. Family, friends, coworkers, even the church choir. Subject: Why I won't be marrying Caroline Bradley. Body: If you watch the news tonight, the lead story will be about a woman named Loretta Jenkins who murdered her husband in cold blood. What the report won't tell you is why. It happened because her husband, Scott Jenkins, a man in his 60s, was having an affair with my ex-fiancée, Caroline Bradley. Yes, that Caroline. The one who always preached morality, who judged her friends for sleeping around. Turns out, behind all that holier-than-thou talk, she was betraying me for months, with a married man old enough to be her father. She didn't just lie. She risked everything. And now a man is dead, because of her choices. I'm grateful this happened before I made the biggest mistake of my life by marrying her. I'd rather be heartbroken now than shackled to someone capable of this kind of betrayal. Let this serve as both a goodbye and a warning. Once a cheater, always a cheater. Ryan. P.S. Don't bother sending condolences. I'm not grieving a breakup. I'm celebrating an escape. The police were keeping Caroline hidden. Her lover's widow had vowed to kill her, and honestly, Ryan hoped she succeeded. Within minutes of hitting send on the mass email, Ryan's inbox lit up with half a dozen replies. Then his phone started ringing. The first call was from the local newspaper, eager for an interview. He didn't hesitate. He sent the reporter a few photos, Caroline posing poolside in a skimpy bikini, and then laid out the story of her betrayal without pulling any punches. Next came a call from a local radio station wanting him live on air. Ryan agreed. For the next couple of hours, he bounced between calls from journalists and a flood of emails. Most were sympathetic, even from Caroline's own friends and family. Betrayal had a way of burning bridges for good. When his voice grew hoarse and he'd grown tired of retelling the same painful tale, Ryan turned his attention to something more therapeutic, purging Caroline's belongings. He grabbed a stack of heavy-duty garbage bags and filled them with everything she had left behind. Clothes, toiletries, sentimental trinkets, they all went in. For bulging bags later, he dragged them to the edge of the driveway beside the trash cans, where they belonged. Ryan's quiet suburban neighborhood hadn't seen a violent crime in over 5 years. So when morning came, the local paper ran a front-page banner. Love triangle ends in murder. By the evening, TV crews had descended on his street. Every major news station led their broadcast with the story. A respected businessman gunned down by his wife, a young fiancé on the run, and the jilted man in the middle. They aired photos of Caroline in her bikini, the deceased Scott Jenkins, and a still image of Caroline labeled "Wanted." As darkness fell, Ryan sat in silence. The streets were quiet again, the cameras gone, the adrenaline drained. He pulled out the bottle of bourbon, sat on the porch, and poured the last of it down his throat. The next morning, a local TV crew arrived just in time to film a locksmith changing the locks on Ryan's front door. As the last deadbolt clicked into place, the locksmith posted "No trespassing" signs around the property. The message was loud and clear. Caroline Bradley was no longer welcome here. Meanwhile, 2 hours later and a few miles away, police located Loretta Jenkins, the widow and accused killer, fast asleep in her car, parked just blocks from Caroline's apartment. She was taken into custody without incident. Back at Ryan's house, he was nursing a brutal hangover when a loud banging rattled the front door. "Go away," he groaned. "It's the police," came the firm response. He opened the door, squinting into the sunlight. "Mr. Erickson, your fiancée is asking to come home. She says she wants to explain everything." Ryan stepped outside, jaw clenched. "I don't have a fiancée," he said coldly. "And this," he gestured around him, "this is not her home. It never will be." He pointed toward the squad car parked at the curb. "Please take her away before I do something I'll regret." Then he motioned to the 4 heavy-duty garbage bags by the garage. "That's all her stuff. Tell her I meant every word. I will never forgive her, and I will never speak to her again. Ever." From inside the police car, Caroline's anguished voice rang out. "Ryan, I love you." He didn't flinch. He turned, walked inside, and slammed the door behind him. Then he cranked the volume on the television, changed the channel to an old western, and sank into the couch, ready to lose himself in a world where the good guys always knew who the villains were. No one ever admitted to sending the anonymous photos that tipped off Loretta Jenkins about her husband's affair, but by Monday morning, everyone noticed the smug satisfaction on Scotty's secretary's face. Whether she was responsible or not, it was clear she didn't mourn his downfall or Caroline's. Caroline quickly became a pariah in the community. Her reputation in tatters, she was fired before even stepping foot back into her office. With the owner dead and his widow's high-priced attorneys failing to argue temporary insanity, the company was sold to a Chinese investor. The new owner wasted no time shutting it down and relocating operations to a remote island nation, leaving the entire staff jobless. Caroline's social circle collapsed just as swiftly. Her friends distanced themselves. Her family expressed nothing but shame and disappointment. After giving her testimony in court, she packed up what little remained of her life into the back of her car. She had no job, no fiancé, no support, just a trail of destruction behind her. As she left town, Caroline couldn't resist driving by Ryan's house one last time. A bold red "Sold" sticker stretched across the "For Sale" sign. He was gone. Tears blurred her vision. She pulled the car over and closed her eyes, trying to summon the feeling of his arms around her. The warmth, the safety, the love she had shattered. A sob escaped her lips. The silence in the car was suffocating. For the first time, she didn't just feel regret. She felt empty. And in that moment, Caroline wished she were dead. 6 years had passed since Ryan last set foot in his hometown. The occasion was somber. He'd come to attend the funeral of a childhood friend who died a hero in Iraq. The Alumni Association had spread the word, and a large turnout from their graduating class was expected. Walking hand in hand with his 8 months pregnant wife, Brooklyn Brooke, for short, Ryan gave her a quiet tour of the Old Town Square. Each step held ghosts, memories he thought he'd buried for good. Sensing his unease, Brooke gently tightened her grip, anchoring him to the present. Their 3-year-old son, Ryan Jr., was far less restrained by memory or melancholy. Full of post-road trip energy, he darted ahead of his parents, too impatient to wait for their slow pace. As Ryan and Brooke paused to admire the window of an antique shop, Ryan Jr. charged ahead, just in time to collide headlong into a woman stepping out of the store next door. She stumbled back, nearly losing her balance, and her shopping bag tumbled to the sidewalk. A few items scattered onto the pavement. Among them, a condolence card. Brooke called out, her voice sharp with maternal authority. "Ryan Robert Erickson, stop right now." The moment the woman heard the name, a visible chill rippled through her. She froze, eyes wide, heart pounding. Brooke rushed over, flustered. "I'm so sorry. We've been in the car for 6 hours. He's got way too much energy to walk like a normal person." The boy looked up at the woman with wide eyes and a guilty frown. Without anyone prompting him, he said softly, "I'm sorry I ran into you, lady, and made you cry." The woman's eyes shimmered. She knelt slowly, brushing a strand of hair from her face as she studied the boy's features that looked heartbreakingly familiar. Ryan, still a few steps behind, caught up, just in time to see the woman lift her gaze. Their eyes met. It was Caroline. And in that instant, time stood still. "Are you okay?" Brooke asked gently. "I'm fine," the woman replied, forcing a small, polite smile. "Your son is a very well-mannered little gentleman. You should be very proud." Ryan knelt to gather the items that had spilled. As his hand brushed against the condolence card, he looked up and froze. Recognition flashed in his eyes. Caroline. She looked older, more fragile than he remembered, but the past came flooding back in an instant. Their eyes locked. Neither spoke. Ryan Jr., unaware of the tension, quietly handed her an ink pen that had rolled under a bench. She took it with trembling fingers. Ryan silently held out the bag to her. She accepted it with a nod, avoiding his gaze. That's when Brooke noticed the tears welling in her husband's eyes. She didn't need to ask. She knew exactly who the woman was. Without hesitation, she stepped between them, her posture fierce and protective. "Get away from my family," she said coldly. Eyes locked on Caroline like a lioness guarding her den. Her voice dropped to a whisper, but the words hit like a hammer. "Never means forever, cheating woman." Caroline said nothing. She simply turned and walked away, her figure slowly disappearing down the street. Alone. And that is the end of today's story. If this tale moved you or made you think, give it a thumbs up and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps more people find these stories and helps me keep writing them for you. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.